Henry Fuseli, a name that conjures thunderous dreams, moonlit heroines, and figures caught mid-movement on the edge of reason. Born in Zurich in 1741 and celebrated in London as John Henry Fuseli, he became the painter of the uncanny. Epic scenes from Shakespeare and Milton, visionary night spirits, fairy tale queens, and gods from the northern sagas. Fuseli's canvases feel theatrical, bodies stretched, shadows sculpted, emotion amplified. He invented poses that influenced generations and sketched with the urgency of someone translating a dream into line. You will meet his most famous image, the incubus perched on a sleeping woman, and lesser-known but equally compelling works, Titania and her enchanted bottom, The Shepherd's Dream from Paradise Lost, Battles of Gods and Monsters, and haunting portraits and self-portraits that reveal the man behind the myth. This is a journey through imagination, technique, and theatricality, a look at how Fuseli reshaped European art by painting the mind's darkest and most exalted visions. Before we dive in, don't forget to like and subscribe. Your support helps us keep creating more educational videos like this one. Fuseli's biography matters because it shaped his art. Born Johann Heinrich Fuseli in a Swiss Protestant family, he studied theology and law before abandoning a conventional career for art. In Rome, he soaked up Michelangelo and Caravaggio, but he returned to Northern Europe with a taste for dramatic lighting, exaggerated anatomy, and theatrical storytelling. London became his stage. He arrived in the 1770s and soon mixed with poets, actors, and collectors. He illustrated books, taught anatomy, and attracted attention for canvases like Ezelin, musing over Meduna, a violent, mournful drama of love and revenge, and for illustrations after Lavater's writings on physiognomy. Those early Roman studies, those anatomical sketches, and his friendships with contemporary writers provided the raw materials for paintings that read like scenes from an epic play. Portraits and self-portraits from the period, from sober busts to fanciful drawings as a faun, hint at a restless imagination that refused to be domesticated. No discussion of Fuseli skips the nightmare. Painted in the 1780s, reproduced widely as engravings and copied into caricature, this image brought him international fame. A woman sleeps, limp and exposed, while a small demonic figure sits on her chest, the incubus, and a spectral horse head peers through the curtains. It's a painting of sleep and the terror within it, a single composition that marries sensual vulnerability with supernatural menace. Technically, Fuseli combined chiaroscuro, strong contrasts of light and dark, with a bold, simplified palette to center the figure and heighten the drama. He also redesigned anatomy for expressive effect. Limbs and neck stretch into poetic exaggeration to convey emotional intensity. The nightmare became a cultural shorthand for the irrational, reproduced in prints across Europe and even parodied in political cartoons. But beyond its sensational subject, the painting is a manifesto. Representation of the mind's fears as visible, theatrical events. Fuseli loved literature. His art often reads like stage direction from Shakespeare or Milton. Take The Shepherd's Dream, inspired by Milton's Paradise Lost, a pastoral vision interrupted by ominous demons, a boy isolated beneath a towering sky, his dream populated by mythic forms. Fuseli treats the poem as a script and turns solitary moments into cosmic encounters. His Shakespearean works, studies of Lady Macbeth's sleepwalking, for example, distill a psychological monologue into a physical tableau. Lady Macbeth becomes a spectral figure, haunted, wringing invisible blood from her hands. Fuseli stages that inner torment for an audience. Across these literary pieces, he emphasizes expression over strict narrative clarity. A single gesture, an arrested step, a sudden gaze suggest whole scenes of action and consequence. These compositions show his facility for translating verse into visual drama. He didn't illustrate line by line, he captured the emotional core. Fuseli's fascination with Shakespeare extended to comedy as well as tragedy. His Titania and Bottom paintings, lush visions of a Midsummer Night's Dream, are oddly sensual, unsettling, and funny at once. Titania, the fairy queen, and the donkey-headed Bottom are bathed in twilight light. The scene mixes eroticism with whimsy. Fuseli enjoyed the contrast between playful magic and erotic undercurrent. Fairies hover with detailed wings, fabrics glint, faces register surprise and delight. He produced major paintings and a striking set of engravings that circulated these images widely. These works demonstrate another side of his imagination, not only nightmares and gods, but the uncanny in everyday romance and folklore. If Shakespeare supplied drama, myth supplied spectacle. Fuseli painted gods and monsters with muscular gusto. Look at his depiction of Thor battering the Midgard serpent. Fury, scale, and foreshortening create a sense of collision. He also tackled medieval and crusading tales. Ezelin and Meduna, for instance, is a tragic, chiaroscuro composition rife with spiritual anguish and melodrama. Fuseli loved unstable compositions, collapsing arches, figures falling or suspended, dramatic diagonals. These choices emphasize the sublime, the mix of beauty and terror that Romanticism would embrace. He often borrowed from Norse sagas, classical myths, and contemporary literature, blending them into a personal mythology of action, passion, and moral complexity. What makes Fuseli distinctive is not only subject, but method. He worked from quick, forceful drawings, anatomical studies, and theatrical composition. His figures are seldom calm. Bodies are tensioned like actors in the moment before delivery. Light is sculptural, carving out volumes and casting deep shadow so that faces and hands become focal points of drama. Fuseli's prints and book illustrations spread his visual vocabulary. Engravings after his works reached readers and artists across Britain and beyond. He taught at the Royal Academy and influenced a younger generation, including William Blake, who echoed Fuseli's visionary intensity and dramatic outlines in his own engravings and paintings. Critics once dismissed Fuseli as a theatrical eccentric. Today, we see him as a pivotal bridge between 18th century classicism and romantic imagination. Fuseli was full of contradictions. He lectured soberly on art theory while sketching wild fantasies in his notebooks. He kept anatomical plates and dream notes side by side. Friends described him as a theatrical presence in salons, intense, emphatic, sometimes combative. One curious thread is physiognomy, the idea that character is readable on the face, which fascinated him and led to dramatic portrait poses and studies. He also cultivated a public persona. Self-portraits range from austere likenesses to playful or allegorical versions. His fascination with the night and the uncanny sometimes crossed into comic territory. Prints parodying the nightmare show how his imagery entered popular culture. Fuseli's pictures were thus both feared and embraced. They frightened critics, inspired poets, and amused caricaturists. In later life, Fuseli became a central figure in British art circles. He was professor of painting at the Royal Academy, where his lectures shaped tastes and encouraged bold, expressive composition. Students and admirers carried his Baroque sense of drama into the 19th century. His prints and engravings ensured that his ideas spread beyond elite salons to a broader public. Today, Fuseli is recognized as a progenitor of Romantic painting, a man who made inner psychological states visible and theatrical. Museums still display his canvases as provocations. They ask viewers to stand closer to the edge of reason and ask why we feel drawn to images of fear, desire, and myth. Henry Fuseli remains an essential figure in the history of art because he reimagined what painting could do, not just reproduce the world, but make thought, dream, and imagination visible. From the nightmare to Titania and Bottom, the shepherd's dream to his mythic combats, his works are theatrical experiments in human feeling. He balanced anatomy with exaggeration, poetry with horror, satire with sincere revelation. If you've enjoyed this tour through his visions, remember that Fuseli's power lies in his willingness to take the irrational seriously, to treat a dream, a nightmare, a ghost, or a myth as the subject worthy of grand painting. He taught us that the mind is a landscape as dramatic as any battlefield or palace. Thank you for listening. Explore the images again and let them stir your own imagination.